Hello and welcome to IB Times TV. I'm Sally Turner, joined here today with senior reporter Connor Sheets to discuss the protests that happened in New York and around the country after George Zimmerman was acquitted for murder of Trayvon Martin. Connor, you were at the protest yesterday here in New York City, so what were kind of the things you saw?
I guess there's two protests yesterday. The first one took place in Union Square and was a gathering of, there was two competing protests. One was just a group of people marching, sort of holding up signs, chanting slogans in support of Trayvon Martin's family and their outrage over the verdict against the acquittal of George Zimmerman. And the other protest was more organized. It was a group of politicians, civil rights leaders, and residents of New York and people basically discussing why, trying to find a way forward, trying to organize a call for action, and still expressing outrage over the situation. And that was around 2 p.m. in Union Square, New York. And then at 6 p.m. there's a second protest that started in Union Square. And what happened was basically a lot of people gathered there. It was a little bit louder of a protest, and at some point everyone started marching out of the square. First they ended up in Times Square, marching from 14th to 42nd up to Times Square, where there's a sit-in, and I think up to 7 people were arrested. And then from there they marched all the way up to Harlem. So they marched over 100 blocks, and along the way some people were arrested. People were running through the streets. Some people were banging on cars. Police were relatively not around. It was surprising that the police didn't have much of a presence above Times Square, sort of towards the end until towards the end up in Harlem. They kept it pretty controlled. There wasn't any violence that I saw on behalf of the protesters, and though I did see that it looked like there might have been some pepper spraying on behalf of the police. So other than that, I mean, it was kind of a pretty standard protest march through New York, even though I guess it did continue a lot longer than the average one.
For the most part, the protests have been quite peaceful, but what was the feeling there yesterday? Were people angry, or do you think they were there more to make a point with peace?
I think it was a mix of the two. I mean, I think a lot of people were angry to see George Zimmerman walk free after shooting an unarmed teenager, but I think a lot of people realized that anger and violence were probably just going to end up with people getting arrested and being counterproductive. And there's a lot of, I think people were planning for this moment for a while, so I think that it was better organized. There's a lot of elected officials there, and even civil rights groups leaders were really saying, let's just try to turn this into something positive. And so I think that's why we avoided seeing like a lot of rage. I mean, I think there is rage, and I even think a lot of the politicians were very angry. But rather than turning that into violence or damaging property, it was instead like channeled towards discussing the future and that type of thing.
The protests have been going for 2 days now. Do you think they're going to keep gaining momentum, or this is going to be something that's stopped?
I don't know that they'll gain momentum. I think they'll continue to some degree. Maybe we'll see another one, happen in Union Square this weekend, or maybe throughout the week there'll be one or two here or there throughout the city. I think people are going to continue to be angry, but I don't know that that they're going to intensify. I think that there's going to continue to be anger over this. I think there's some suits, there'll probably be a civil rights suit brought by the Justice Department. They're discussing that now, and a civil suit on behalf of the Martin family against Zimmerman. So we might see some, results. The protesters might see that as some kind of result. There might be some might kind of quell the protest. But I think at this point there's still a lot of rage. But I think that there'll probably still be protests, but I don't think we'll see the level of outrage again.
Speaking of that kind of rage, I saw on Twitter this morning a lot of people are calling George Zimmerman dead man walking. A lot of people, there's hatred, and there's going to be genuine threats for his life. What will happen to him now?
I know he's gone into hiding, and I know he's facing those possible other cases. But other than that, I think his life is probably destroyed permanently, I would say. I mean, I don't know how he goes to work somewhere or walks down the street ever again. I mean, he has, according to reports I've read, he is in hiding, and I don't know what future he has, being at the center of this circus, basically.